and welcome to today's session on manufacturing for healthcare and biomedical startups. My name is Jue. I'm the CEO of SGInnovate. For those of you who are not familiar with SGInnovate, we are a government-owned company whose mandate is to develop the foundational, the startup segment of what we hope to be an entrenched and thriving deep tech economy. SGInnovate focuses on domains based on what we believe its needs are, so it can shift. So previously we had focused on digital. Today our new focus areas are in agri-food tech, advanced manufacturing, as well as biomedical technologies and startups. We typically approach the support we provide we try to approach the support in a holistic way. So we are able not just to invest in promising startups, but we're also able to support them in terms of talent development, as well as building a community around them. Today's session is an example of the types of communities that we're trying to build around the startups that we're investing. And we're hoping that today, following this session, you would be at least introduced to Willie, to Caesar, to Manchun, and to Nicholas, and these are very concrete contexts. Sorry, I see Manchun raising your hand. Okay, all right. Let me continue. So today's topic, which looks at how startups move from the bench to manufacturing, is a very complex one, and it's one that's very close to my heart, having spent time commercializing technologies, being involved in talent development in this area, running a medical device startup myself, and investing in these companies through my time in EDBI previously and currently in SGInnovate. This is an area that many startups tend to underestimate, or in some instances completely overlook. Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the manufacturers. Now, the manufacturers play a very, very important role because these are the guys who are going to make your ideas real. But at the same time, there are also constraints. No manufacturer can be all things to everyone. So it's a very interesting, challenge, right? Because in between these two extremes, obviously there are opportunities and limitations. And today, what we're going to do is we're actually going to find out what these challenges are on the startup side and also on the manufacturer side, what the constraints are, so that as a startup entrepreneur or as a manufacturer, you know what your opportunity set is, and to know when to seek help, external help, if existing companies cannot provide that service. So today we have assembled a very interesting lineup. We have, on the one hand, a startup called Sunbird, represented by Nicholas Ho. They're developing a novel suite of novel diagnostics. And then we move into a startup that's been there and done that, and that's Biolytics. I've been in Biolytics early days. They were known as Clearbridge Biomedics. Back in that day, I was part of the Clearbridge Biomedical Sector Accelerator. So, I've watched the growth of Biolytics over the years. And then we moved to D&K. D&K is one of SGInnovate's principal contract manufacturers because we manage a number of venture building projects. And for the medical device projects, we have worked very closely with D&K in product development. And then finally, we're one of the largest players in the space, and that's Racer Medical, who's represented today by its founder and CEO, Willie Ko. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of them to spend 3 to 5 minutes introducing their companies, and then we will delve into the discussion. So without further ado, can I invite Willie? Why don't we get started with you?
Hi. So I share with you my some of my PowerPoint to show you some of the products that we started. So today we have close to about 8 factories in Asia, and the HQ is actually in Singapore. So beside Racer Technology, I'm also the chairman of the Singapore MedTech Consortium. Later I'll go through it. How does the consortium work? And all the facility presently that we have are all ISO 13485 certified. And these are some of our key customers. We have close to about 65 customers, and a lot of them now are startup. So these are the bigger player, but we also now concentrate a lot more during the last 8 years in startup. So this is the Singapore MedTech Consortium, which I chair, and we started about 17 years ago with the help of Spring at that time, or IE. Today it's called ESG, and we also have the a lot of partner with German Medical Valley, which is also a startup incubation center in Stuttgart, and Meta is actually in Chicago. LADA Institute is actually in LA. And all these are actually overseas partner that we we mentor, we give speech, we assist also. And in the MedTech Consortium, there are also investor. SMC also have an investment arm. So we also have an investment. We invest in quite a lot of number of startups, close to about 7 now. And we not just help you to do the contract manufacturing, the investment. We also concentrate on help you to do distributor. So today we have about 12 distributors. It depends on what type of devices or what type of products you do. So they also are distributor in the consortium. And these are the consortium member. Today we have we started with 5, I mentor 5. Today is close to 75 SME. So ranging from PCBA to firmware, software, metal stamping, metal injection molding. So these are some of the products that we developed. This is mostly class 3 device, cochlear implants, insulin pumps, the data logger. So this one, some of them we have a JV patent with it. This is a breast pump. Everyone know Widow. Widow is pretty famous. So in the olden day, we actually developed for Limerick, which is the hospital grade pump, and this is also startup. And Widow is also a startup. They go for Kickstarter. We developed and help them to design the first prototypes that they do for the Kickstarter. And today, I think they are pretty well established. They managed to raise 5 million fund, and I think now the company is about maybe 20 million to 50 million. And this is a HIV test kit. We also work with a lot of universities. This is from University of Cambridge, Professor Allens. We work with them on the test kit for HIV. So it's a HIV test kit. So we started the MedTech Consortium is because also when I was in England helping Professor Allen to develop this, we find that the supporting industry in UK is very little. That means they don't have the local supporting industry. So that's why we decided that we have to do something for Singapore. And that's why we started and mentor the local SME for medical devices. So today we have close to quite a closed ecosystem in Singapore that we can be self-sufficient. This is the ventilator. So this is a very good example. During the pandemic last year, in fact, we managed to develop with our counterpart in US and also in UK 2 ventilators. And the main reason is because in UK, Worldwide Ventilator Foundation, they also have a shortage because during a pandemic, they don't have the local supplier. They have shortage of almost everything. And here in Singapore, even during the pandemic, we're able to develop together 10 prototypes and pass the FDA's emergency FDA certification for actually full-fledged ventilator. That means this one, it can be used in the hospital. And also in UK, there is the ventilator challenge organized by the government of UK, and we also managed to build a prototypes together with Cambridge Consultant. Of course, this cluster, they have the bigger player like the Airbus, Dyson, I think is also one of them. But they are all together, I think 3 groups, and Cambridge Consultant is one of the group. And these are some of the products that is the bigger player. This is Mandela. This is actually doing the sterilization. And plasma blood, we also, in fact, we started off with the first gen plasma blood, that is 1993. Just to give you a whole ecosystem of why medical device. Medical device, the product is very lasting. Like imagine, 1993, we developed the first plasma blood sealer for our customer. Today, we are still running it, but we have to develop a new one is because right now, they run out of component. That means we are shortage of resistor, capacitor. And if you change some of this, you still have to do regulatory reapproval, and that costs money. So it's better to develop a new one. And this is a class 2B device. So you can see even we developed the whole automation line for the wafer to run on for the product. So machine, they give it for free. So a lot of the time, if we come to advise our startup, we will advise them, you need to have some disposable. So that is your continuous revenue. This is our own products that we white label to our customer also. So this is actually a tuner, sealer. That means you can seal plasma blood tube, silicon tube, everything. So this is our own product, but we also do white label to our customer. So the partnership is so close, and that today we have partnership. If they don't want to develop, we can develop, and we white label to them. This is another. We are also specialized in microfluidic chips. So take note, this is Nanomix. This is actually a disposable PCR. And in fact, during the pandemic, I think Nanomix is the one to announce that they are the first one to get approval for the PCR, disposable PCR approval from the US government on the FDA for the test kit. So you can, of course, Nanomix, when they develop this, it's not for COVID-19. It's used to be for Ebola. But Ebola, everyone understands there's not much money to earn because it come and go. So then they do it for dengue fever, and then they do it for cardiac. But the recent one is actually, so test kit is you just change the reagent inside, you get good to go to do whatever you want to formulate. So this is 8-layer form. I think this is six layer. So Ebola, I think, is only 4 layer. So they have layer by layer. So what we do is we die cut the and then we stick first layer to second layer. So this is in layer form. Later on, I think Manchuan will talk about the cancer cell retrieval. So this one also one project that we developed with some time ago, a startup. You can see the prototypes and then the production model. So Manchuan will talk a little bit more on their products, and this is one of very successful story that we work together with a local company to have a product launch into the market. And this is also a microfluidic chips. 3D culture cells, we also invest. So just now I forgot to mention Biolytics. We also invest in Biolytics. AM Biotechs, we also invest. This is actually MIT. For the MedTech consultant, we also give mentorship and speech in MIT and Harvard. And this is one of the spin-off from MIT. It's a 3D culture shell. Right now, it's running on, I think they managed to have the fund with Wavemaker. And the Wavemaker, I think, invests recently about 3 million or 4 million with them. This one is to show some of the products that we used to have 3 factories in China, but we actually shut it down because China at that time is not a good ecosystem for medical device. Because if you are running a cell phone, actually you can go China, but if you are running medical device at that time, because of the milk issue, everything, China is actually not a good place to run medical device because it's very tough to get a certification, especially if it's CE or FDA. But if your product is selling in China, then you can do it in China because you need to run it locally in China to sell in China. But then you will be compete with a lot of the local market unless your medical device is a bit unique. But then you will also be get copy and everything. So so there's pro and cons, yeah. Okay, so this is another one which we also invest. Is actually creating steam, and so they have a unique technology in creating steam. So today I'm talking also a little bit of the product. We invest in this company because normally we also need to look at the asset plan, and this company come to us. The asset plan is actually Fisher Parker will buy them. So they actually a biggest competitor of Fisher Parker. So what they do is actually they create steam, but they have a new technology in ceramic heater that they can create steam at a very small space. Whereas today, if you want to create the steam, they actually boil the water. So the biggest competitor is actually Fisher Parker. So their asset plan is actually Fisher Parker maybe will buy them and close them down or develop the product further. So that's why we invest. So sometimes if you do pitching, you need to make sure you have an asset plan, or you have either you want to list the company or buy out or anything. Actually, when we used to do for Fitbit, when Fitbit came to us, I need two gentlemen, James and Eric, but we do less on IoT because we find IoT is not a very good ecosystem for Singapore, because people will copy. Because after some time, even we at that time we do for Fitbit, we are actually when they approach Foxconn or Flextronic, actually they said that they don't want to do for them because their volume is too small. They don't have cash. It's just a startup. But we did for them. But after we did for them, we find that when their product grow, when the company grow, they will still go to China. So I think Fitbit now mostly in China, manufactured in China. But when James and Eric sold the company to Google, they did mention that in a CNN interview that when there are nobody, a small company in Singapore help them to develop their products. Even one was the guarantor for certain PCBA company, and that is Racer Technology in our Batam facility. So we also do reagent, because after 9/11, we find that reagent is very important because transport of liquid is very difficult. So this is a reagent facility. During the pandemic, we actually helped the government to do the test kit, the test kit, and also the migrant worker test kit. So that is the reagent side. So of course you can do other post test kit. Okay, that's about all.
Thank you. Thanks, Billy.
Yep.
Caesar, would you like to tell us a little bit about D&K? You're muted, Caesar.
Good one there. You got me. I'm Caesar from D&K. I am the Business Development Director in Singapore. We are a company that's based out from the US. A little bit about D&K. We are an international product development, product design, and contract manufacturing services company. We have a track record of turning innovative designs into successful products and lines of business. D&K has been around for 2 decades, starting out in San Diego. And so far, we've gone through 700 successful product realization journeys. In the process of this journey, 500 over patents have been enabled, and about $5 billion worth of businesses have been generated. Well, D&K has a very good and robust product realization process. We've had very good success in developing very complex devices, particularly in the medical space. Our factories in Singapore, Malaysia, and San Diego are all 9000, 14000, and 13485 certified. So I welcome anyone who has a great idea in mind to approach D&K and see how we can work together to bring this to the market. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caesar. Manchun?
Hi, good morning. My name is Manchun. I'm from Biolytics, currently the Chief Scientific Officer with Biolytics. I've been with the company for since 2012. So Biolytics, it used to be named as Clearbridge Biomedics. It was a spin-off from National University of Singapore. So when the journey started in 2009, actually the founders of company licensed out a proprietary technology in the space of sorting sorting and sample processing of particles from biofluids, and we actually commercialize, productize a solution that can have applications in liquid biopsy. So we all know that, you know, for cancer patient, for diagnosis, we need to subject a patient to very painful and invasive surgery. So the mission of the company when it was started is actually to, you know, bring clarity to cancer, but in a more cost-effective and painless way through a simple blood draw. I mean, our mission has not really changed over the years. Our mission still remain focused to develop cost-effective diagnostic solution to help in patient clinical outcome and experience using innovation in medical technology. However, I mean, with any company, we need to pivot to stay relevant in the market. And over the years, we have expanded in operating segments covering infectious disease. I mean, last year when COVID-19 hits the world, we were pretty much involved in developing rapid test solutions to help manage the disease. At the same time, we also currently operate a clinical diagnostic laboratory in Singapore, and that is accredited by the College of American Pathologists. And we also currently, you know, have expanded the scope to cover molecular testing. And in a way, we manufacture medical devices. We are also the users of our own technology. So yeah, so that's pretty much who we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manchun. And Nicholas, finally, Nicholas.
All right, saving the best for last, guys. No, I'm
Yes.
kidding. So I'm Nicholas. I'm a technology lead and co-founder of Sunbird Bio. So we are a venture capital-backed biotechnology startup that was spun off from NUS and A-Star in 2020. So quite a young company. Our vision is to improve lives by providing clarity and accessibility of diagnostic testing to better inform healthcare decisions and outcomes. And we are using a combination of our proprietary nanotechnology, biochemistry, and engineering innovations to build a new generation of molecular diagnostic technologies to meet the current challenges in this, especially in the speed, accuracy, and accessibility of disease diagnostics. We are especially interested in like the really early diagnosis of diseases such as cancer and neurodegenerative disease, because we see opportunities there to provide physicians and patients specifically with better treatment options and outcomes once they know they have the disease early.
Thank you. Is that it, Nicholas? Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm going to start the questions, and I'll start with you since you've just spoken. But during the pandemic, Sunbird made a pivot, right? And because its platform was potentially useful in diagnosing COVID-19, and its sort of unique selling point was the fact that it was a PCR independent platform offering a brand new way of identifying viral nucleic acid. I should disclose to everyone that I'm before I joined SGInnovate, because of the help that I've rendered to Nicholas and his team, I'm also a small shareholder in this company. So, and I continue to remain on the steering committee. So I'm aware of some of the issues that they've had. But I thought, Nicholas, maybe can you walk us through, this might be of a special interest to the other biomedical startups in the audience today. What were some of the challenges you faced as you tried to develop rapidly under the circumstances a COVID-19 diagnostic?
So as Manchun has said, like you pivot to stay relevant in the market, and there was an opportunity to take our nanotechnology sensor, which we had developed, to like redesign it quickly to detect COVID-19, the genetic sequences. And the benefit of the technology is that because we are using the nanotechnology conformational changes to enhance the signal and do further downstream amplification reactions, it did not require all the controls that PCR normally does, especially in the engineering space, right? So we tried to see how quickly we could turn it from a lab-based test into something that can be deployed out in the field. And that was an interesting challenge where we actually met Willie during that time, because we actually talked to Racer about how we could do this, because we are a small startup. We never ever tried to bridge the gap into manufacturing. So Willie and his team especially were very helpful to help us guide us through all the challenges that would come when we take a process that works in the lab and try to scale it up to manufacture on the factory floor and then send it out to a customer. So without his help, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we actually did in the process.
But nevertheless, there were, like I said earlier, no manufacturer can do everything, right? So along the way, what were some of the things that that Racer could not do? And what advice did they give you so that you could address that problem?
Right. So the first major problem was actually that of scale, right? The processes we were doing in the lab, while made for a very sensitive sensor, were also quite expensive if you were to scale up to the volumes and concentrations that you will need to actually make it work on the manufacturing floor. And the problem was that the way that we assembled the nanostructures seemed to depend a lot more on the concept on these particular factors. So working with Willie's team, we tried to find alternative processes that we could use that we could scale down, or scale up by scaling down the amount of reagents we were using. And we were trying a lot of ways in doing that, and we thought we had a way of manufacturing it. However, it turns out that there were challenges in that process, because this was something that we did not know at the beginning. But as we were working with Willie's team and making it, we found out in the lab that because of the changes we were making, especially in reducing the amount of reagents we were using, it was causing the sensors that were being made to be more sensitive to being broken down in the environment. And we suspect it's because the lower amount of reagents we were using made it much more sensitive to the redox reactions that are present in the air and the environment that we are going through.
But Racer was able to point you in the right direction,
yeah.
Right?
They were able to help us think about you need to go, if you want to scale it up and within this cost range, you actually have to try to reduce this. And without their help and guidance, we would never even have thought about doing it pursuing developments in that direction.
So this is probably an example of what Willie was talking about earlier about the MedTech consortium. Willie, was in this particular case, was this a consortium partner that you referred? Maybe you may not remember all the details, but I think here's an opportunity to talk a little bit about the MedTech consortium. How, when a startup comes to you, if it's something that you cannot address, then you can refer it to the other partners in the consortium.
Yes. Yeah, so it's actually everyone effort is a consortium. That's why we make it very, very transparent. That means it's a consortium. Our customer also can directly work with any of the member of the consortium member, especially this project was happened during the pandemic. And so there's not many, you cannot get overseas. So you have to be everything localized. Everything must be localized. So there are some jig and fixture. So we don't do jig and fixture. So but we design, and some of the fixture is actually done in the tool room, but some are done out of with the consortium help. So it is everyone effort, and also some other facility that we have to set up, equipment, other things that so it's the whole ecosystem. So that's why I very stress it's so wonderful that with the consortium, it actually proved how it really becomes.
Willie, it looks like we may have lost you. Is it? Willie? Sorry, you were cut off briefly.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know which part you lost me.
I was just for about 10-15 seconds.
Okay.
Never mind, just carry on. Just carry on.
Yeah, so it's a group effort. So most of the so today we are everything is about transparency. That means we open to the MedTech consortium to everyone. That means if we cannot do it, the whole supplier base, you have the whole supplier base, and most of these members are working with us for very long. They understand what is MedTech, and let's say if you need a firmware, we actually will recommend a supply in a consortium, which is they understand what is history based. That means they will develop the products. When they come back to me to do the high volume production, I have no problem, because when I go to the regulatory, I have all the document in hand. That means they know about history, what's history based, the data they collect, the most of the document they do. So that it cut a lot of short time for me to approve for regulatory later on with HSA or with CE or even with FDA. So that's why we have the MedTech consortium. So everyone understand their job, specific job, and also most of all the MedTech consortium today are mostly local SME.
Manchun, how about you, Manchun? I mean, you've been there and done that from the early days. I mean, I was also aware, at the CBSA board level, some of the challenges that the company had faced. How did you, what were, in your case, what were the challenges and how did you overcome them from a manufacturing scale-up perspective?
Sure. In the earlier days when Biolytics was still, in the process of translating a lab technology to manufacturable devices, I guess that point of time there was a lot of challenges, of course, limited resources. We were probably one of the first guys in Singapore to develop a microfluidic system for medical use. And a lot of, the core IPs and technology, right now we have almost 40 patents granted on the core separation technology, but that particular core technology on its own is just one component of the total solution. We needed actually to have a system that is able to be manufactured, because what we have in the laboratory is something which you can you can buy off the shelf, put together. That is not a product that can be commercialized. So our challenges actually is in a way translating the design to something which a box that can be manufactured easily with parts and components that can be sourced either locally or readily available. The journey for Biolytics is such that, the initial design, actually, we went to a design house, a UK based company. After that, when we tried to localize the manufacturing, we realized that, it's not straightforward. We went to Willie for help, and we were actually very appreciative of the fact that his team actually went down to UK to learn how to put the system together with the Biolytics team. Last time it was called Cleavage Biomedics, and spent almost a couple of weeks having iterative and many conversations with the design house, how to put things together. How can we actually change out some of the parts and even jointly source for suppliers, because certain components you can find in UK readily, Singapore actually you don't have access, or it's just too expensive. So that is the key challenges we faced in the initial days of the translation process. Yeah.
So it looks like design seems to be a problem, right? The design, DFMA, design for manufacture and assembly, seems to be, it's a common theme. I think Nicholas had faced the same problem, because ultimately, unless that is fixed or frozen, manufacturers also can't make it. That's right. Yeah. Caesar, would that be a fair statement? By the time it comes to you, it must be somewhat ready, or is D&K also, in the drug world, they call them CDMOs, right? So the development organizations as well, development and manufacturing. So at D&K, are you able, because in between a yes decision for you and a no, I cannot make it decision, there is a lot of gray in the middle where you possibly could do it if there was a little bit of work invested. So how do you deal with those proposals that come your way?
Good question, really. Typically speaking, when you engage a contract design company, you would want to have your ideas quite firmly in place. You want to have some kind of MVP that has shown its efficacy and it works. And from the product development side of things, you take it from there. Because even from that point onwards, you still have quite a fair bit of work to do, particularly jumping through regulatory hurdles, safety. At that point in time, it's really about how safe it is for patients to use or how safe it is for the users to use it. But if you take a step back and say, oh gosh, this doesn't even work, can I then take it from here to a CDM guy and try to get it to work? It's possible. But I think founders and startups have to understand that that's going to take a much longer time. And typically speaking, in our funding environment here in Singapore, very difficult to plan for that. I'm sure you all know there's always a fixed quantum of how much work can be put in or how much the budget's going to be. But when it comes to a point where it's unknown whether you're going to take strategy A or B, then you always have a little too much room, not enough room to wriggle. Your budget may not be sufficient. So there is no good answer to this, I guess. It's possible for CDMs to help make the product better or maybe even make it work to begin with before you bring it to the next phase. But depending on how your deal is structured with your funder, we can evaluate that option if it's possible.
But D&K itself does not provide contract design services, right?
We do, and that's one of our main business. In fact, D&K started out as a company that just did contract design. We had no manufacturing, zero. Only in the last, I would say, a dozen years did we start manufacturing. And it's also because our customers came to us and said, hey, you already did the hard part, right? You designed all the difficult bits. Your complex systems are just amazing. How about you just put things together? So we thought about it for a long time, right? I said, that's a good point, right? We already did the hard part. How difficult is it to snap a few things together? So about 12, 13 years ago, we decided to do manufacturing. And thus, Singapore was set up here in 2009 to start manufacturing and also design at the same time. Yeah.
So, Willie, is that the same with Racer? You also provide some, I mean, what do you also provide contract design services to the startup companies?
Yes, yes, we do.
In what area?
Yeah, yes, we do. We are good in the mechanical area, the mechanical design area. So the first, in fact, our first product is actually the plasma blood sealer, which we helped after the 9/11. US government decided that they need the plasma blood sealer. So we start off with that particular project designed for them, and we are trying to localize. Look for a supplier here to run the production, and we have a hard time finding because that is 1998, and it's so tough to get a local guy with ISO 13485. So at that time there is no such thing as 13485. There's only 9001. So end up I have to set up production just like D&K at that time to run these particular products. And it started with 1 factory, and today it go up to 8 factories because actually we are good in metal stamping, but end up we also concentrate in plastics molding and everything, because a lot of medical devices actually need this area also. So along the way, it's actually product design first, and then production come in because of the whole ecosystem. So that's how we started. So to answer your question, yes, we started with product design.
Also started with product design.
Yes.
But nevertheless, Manchun, I mean, when you eventually had to go overseas to the UK, right? So for what you were doing back then, nobody locally was able to provide that.
I guess back in the earlier days, we went. I mean, we spoke to various companies, a few of them locally and overseas, it was a bit of like, we have to test and try. In fact, this product that eventually we went to Racer for manufacturing, that is actually our second generation product. I mean, from the experience from the first product, which faced design as well as manufacturing issues, we kind of reckon that, I mean, going to perhaps someone who have done the similar product before, we can actually take learnings from them and shorten the curve. At the same time, I guess one of the other factor that we considered is actually, in terms of for medical device, we always talk about, subsequently, if you want to get a regulatory approvals, there is certain documentations, design history files that needs to be put in place, and that's very important, because I mean, if we don't start doing that from even day one, from design time point, then subsequently there will be a lot of gaps to patch. And I guess it was a bit of trial and error that eventually we went to this UK design house for the initial design of our system. But I guess what I also wanted to highlight, and maybe less relevant to this particular question, is that when we try to translate or find local partners for manufacturing, one of the key challenges we face is that we were still in the high mix, low volume kind of production space, and it's most of the manufacturer that we spoke with during that period of time will ask for, what's your volume, what's your forecast in next 2 coming years, and also are the design already locked down? Are we expecting changes and so on? I guess when we spoke with Willy and Racer at that point of time, they were accommodating to us in a sense that certain parts, if we use a certain manufacturing process, it's going to cost the company a bomb. For example, if you start injection molding every single parts from day one, then there's certain startup costs to machinings and all that. And there was advices on, perhaps, you can start off by a different manufacturing process, test it out. If it works, then you move on to something which is more expensive and more polished. So I guess, yeah, those were the challenges and advices that we had. Yeah.
Nicholas, similarly, eventually you had to go to the US, right? I mean, I think in your case, you had a twin challenge on functionalizing the reagents on the one hand and fixing the design of the hardware components on the other. So you want to just share some of the experience with you, with the audience?
Right. So we are still, we are young startup, so we're actually still in the journey of getting there. We are not quite as established as Manchun is with biolytics and having 2 generations of devices. We're still in the process of building our first generation. But as Manchun has said, we have, when you are building a device or building a design, contract design, you do have to have that design history file in place, because it's much easier to have it in place when you're doing it than to try to go back and patch holes in it. And I'm sure Caesar will agree that that's usually how it goes. So that's why it's usually very important to have a partner, a contract design partner who has done this before. They know what needs to be documented at the right time, so that you don't have to go back and fix holes in the design history file when it comes back. Secondly, not every contract design house is the same. They each have their own expertise, as it were. So you have to find the ones that are specialized in the area that your specific technology is focused in. For example, Manchun had to find one that was very specialized in the microfluidics side of it, because that's where biolytics core technology is in. And we had to look for one that could work at the interface of nanotechnology and biology together with the engineering. So we had to find a design house that could integrate all 3 areas. So they had to have experts in different areas and a good project leader that could talk to different experts and get them to work together. And that's why it's not always easy to find the right partner to work with. And having a partner that's willing to adapt to your processes and can give you feedback on how you can adapt your processes to make it work is very important.
That's the biggest conundrum. I mean, Caesar, what's a reasonable way? how would you advise startups, to how might you bridge this gap? Because clearly, I mean, D&K can't do everything. Racer also cannot do everything. I mean, how do you advise, or do you also have a similar thing to release a MedTech consortium where if somebody comes to you and something you cannot do, you are able to refer to partners?
So I think D&K has been in the business for a long time. What D&K has currently is a main San Diego headquarter. We have about 700 people there, of which around 150 are design engineers. Of the 150 design engineers, about 40 to 50% of them have advanced degrees, means they have their PhDs and so on. So within our group of people, even including Singapore, we have about 30 people. This group of people have a varied experiences. So within D&K, we tap on not just Singapore, but as well as San Diego resources to be able to complete a project. And in most cases, if we are unable to fulfill the requirements, we either do two things: hire the right guy to be able to do the job, or two, we have existing partners that have, let's say, experience in the microfluidic space. Because in the microfluidic space, it's a quite a peculiar segment where you need to make use of existing libraries to cut short the time of development. If you started from scratch, it would have taken too long for most people. So there are many companies out there, particularly in the Bay Area, that just specializes in nothing but microfluidics. So when we have established links and contacts with this type of people, it makes work a lot easier. And another thing that most startups would ask is, hey, can you do ID? ID is another world altogether, right? How do you make a product look like an Apple iPhone that everyone wants to buy? But that's a skill on its own. So when you say someone can do design, doesn't mean that someone can do a fantastic ID. So in areas like these, we partner with people who have a good track record of building very good and designing very good exterior with nice interfaces, so that customers can enjoy this solution through just D&K. You don't really have to walk out into another ecosystem to find different partners to plug in for you. So that's how D&K operates. And on the space of IP, for example, I think most of startups have a very high sensitivity about IP. I can put it out there today that D&K is I would say uninterested in IP, but to put it very simply, we don't compete with our clients. Until today, D&K still do not have our own products, which is why I think many customers feel very safe in working with D&K as a development company, that we're not out there to compete with you, we're out there to solve difficult engineering problems.
Okay, I see a very interesting question here, and it's a question I meant to ask as well. As a startup, this comes from Lisa. As a startup working with a CDM in the manufacturing process, are there specific talents or job roles that are important for us to still have internally when starting this? So presumably, I'm thinking that this means, should the startup itself, what is the profile of someone in a startup who can help to manage this interface with the contract manufacturers? I don't know, Manchun, you want to take a crack at this, or Caesar, or Willie? Manchun,
I can
take a crack.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure. Maybe I can just go first. I mean, this speaking from our experience. What we experience in our journey is that we probably need different talents at different point of time for productization of a technology. So when we shift to manufacturing or in a mode where we are trying to find suppliers, qualifying them, speaking with manufacturers, I guess a most valuable talent or asset to the company is actually a seasoned quality person. in our experience, we started in 2009. We did source for a QA person who was actually pretty important to the development of our product. What we see is that sometimes it's really better to do it right from the start, to find to identify the processes that are instrumental to developing the product, and having a quality person will help in the entire process, as well as some other in-house or institutional knowledge or expertise that is particularly important to Biolytics was actually because we are developing a system, a microfluidic system, being able to actually troubleshoot or understand the system, for example, the firmware, the software of the particular system, being able to make tweaks and small changes to it was very important, because the design for our system was actually done in the UK at that point of time. If we have to go back to them for every small changes, then it would take too long. So in short, I guess for us, it was having a seasoned quality assurance person, as well as in-house expertise for critical functions, electronics and firmwares and so on. That was pretty important for us.
But I think I'll be stating the obvious when I say this. But these people are very hard to find, though. Am I correct?
For Biolytics, I would say yes. At that point of time, it was pretty difficult to find someone who is experienced, and at the same time having a startup mindset, because being a startup, sometimes you have to wear multiple hats, cover different functions. So it is not so easy to find the right fit at the right time.
Caesar, Willie, why don't we start with Willie first? On your end, what kind of talent do you have, or what is the most important kind of talent that you want for the kind of work that you do?
Okay, maybe I start off with you cannot have everything under the sun, and you're a jack of all trades and master of none. So that's why I have the Singapore MedTech Consortium. So we work with actually, in fact, this Cambridge consultant, the design house is also part of the consortium. And a few of the design house is actually part of the consortium. So today we work together to provide a whole ecosystem. And we have also a design house in UK. I know in UK and in US, in the Bay Area, to help the local startup also to service mechanical design. So we are actually specialized more on mechanical, like firmware, software is a MedTech consortium, because sometimes we develop one product for our customer, which is a sealer, and they use a very low frequency technology, which is actually a tuner. So for this, you can't employ anyone because it's old school. We have to actually end up getting Philips engineer to do part-time for us. And then we recommend this to our customers. So because end of the day, our service we provide is local and is low cost. That means it's not very high cost because they are startup. So we actually sometimes do recommend part-times for our customer, so to reduce their cost to the market. Like old school TV tuner is actually to be very frank, is all the older stuff that is from Philips tuner division, and to develop that particular products. And so this is how the MedTech Consortium work. That's why we are very open with our resource and everything. We even work with few Australia design house for projects that they develop for local startup in Block 79. So we are also advisor for in certain Block 75, 79, and some of the if we find that it's a bit tough for us to do it, we actually recommend it to certain design house that are specialized in that particular field.
Caesar, how about you? How would you advise startups so that the interface between the startup and companies like yourselves can be smoother, so that less time and money is wasted? From your experience, what are some of the talent gaps that you're seeing on the startup side?
I echo some of the thoughts from Manchun about quality aspects of things, but I think this person has to be slightly more all-encompassing. However, having said that, the understanding of QS is critical here. Because when you transition even from design to manufacturing, you must understand that going into manufacturing is not a free pass at this point in time away from medical compliance. So in the early design phase, you have your design history files. In the later phase, you have your device master records, which details all your traceabilities from your manufacturing. So because it is still a QS function, it is preferable that this person has a quality background. However, having said that, he also has to learn how to deal with a lot of people. Like if you're interfacing with a manufacturer, you're going to be dealing with manufacturing engineers, you're going to be dealing with supply chain, you're going to be dealing with me, right? I'm the easiest person to deal with, ironically, but there are many functions that you need to understand what their roles are. So this person needs to be somewhat experienced, somewhat of a project manager role in the past, leading through medical device projects would also be a good candidate. But these people, as you've mentioned, I think they're very hard to find, hard to come across. If you find one, keep them. You know, there are core people within your company that you
need. We are on SGInnovate's end. We're also trying to see how we might. I mean, it's very experiential. Unfortunately, it's not something you can just teach. But we are certainly looking at how to plug some of these gaps, and we may come back to companies like ourselves to see how we can train people. But I'm hearing you and Manchun loud and clear. And I think for the audience, I think for Lisa who asked that question, I think the answer seems to be that quality seems to be a good place to begin. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to take one last question. I'm going to pick one. Okay, there's a question here. Okay, for the manufacturers, it was actually directed at Willie, but I'll just ask it to both Caesar and Willie. Can you manufacture similar products for different companies, and how do you handle the potential conflicts of interest?
Yes, we can. Like for instance, we are specialized in PCR. We do for BioBread and also Amphenol. So one is a US company, one is a German company, and because we have 8 factories, so normally we actually split them up, and both BioBread and Amphenol know that they actually manufacture in the same company, and they understand it, but because of the confidentiality and also the layout, we show it to them, everything, they are very, very comfortable. In fact, they are with us for almost 12 years, close to 15 years. One is about 12 years, one is 15 years.
How about you, Caesar? How do you manage it? Do you also just take advantage, you China wall them according to geographical location, or how do you do it?
For manufacturing, let's say we do it in San Diego, we have different buildings. We tend to segregate them. The teams of people who are working on them are also totally different. So if we do the development phase all the way through to manufacturing, typically speaking, these are all separated. You have 2 separate groups of people working on it, and information is on a need-to-know basis. I think we've done this long enough to understand that there are these concerns about IPs and the concerns about trade secrets. The funny thing is, when new clients come to D&K and they walk through our line and they see a product, they go like, I want one of those too. Can you develop that for us? And they're all brand name customers looking at each other's product, you know. And sometimes we can't really shield completely, but as they walk through the line, it's just, you know what, we have this development plan for something like that. Can you put your A team on it, or people who have worked on it? And typical answer will be like, you know, we can do it again, but we can't use the same set of people. It has to be a separate group. There are some learnings we can still rub across, but generally speaking, you're not going to be able to copy anything. In fact, same thing happened in Singapore. One of the first contacts I had here in Singapore was a doctor that was in rehab. When he knew that we were working on BioNest, which is a rehab device, a trolley type device that's hung on the ceiling of a rehab center. It's like a carrier for patients who cannot walk. He said, hey, you did it for Bioness. Can you, do the same thing for me as well? The same answer is, we can develop for you from scratch, but there's nothing we can copy from the other design. So again, we try to segregate it very clearly. And that's how we respect each other's IP, right? If Biolytics came to us, we'd be like, hey, this is your IP. This is your know-how, and we're going to treat it separately. And I'm not going to tell Sunbird, I did this for Biolytics. That's how we conduct our business.
Thank you so much. I have a few more questions from Ellie and William, whoever you are out there. I'm sorry we have run out of time, but if you want to write into my teammates, we can possibly connect you with either with any of the speakers here. But there are still some remaining questions on whether a startup should manufacture in-house or outsource, how do you make a decision. But unfortunately, out of respect for your time, I'm going to bring this session to a close. And I want to thank all of you for your very, very valuable inputs and your time today. So thank you, all of you. And stay in touch. I may reach out to you all for other things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.